Rajiv, thank you so much for taking the time to have this session with us, where we're essentially trying to understand how AI is and can continue to transform operations, and especially in the context of physical operations. Now, before we get into the core subject matter of today, it'd be great, to get a quick background, quick introduction from you. I mean, we've obviously done our part trying to inform the community and the audience about who you are and what your journey's been like. But always fantastic to hear from you. What are some of the key roles, transitions that you've experienced? How has it a little bit shaped your perspective and your interest of building in the space of operations over the year? So, with that, hand over to you and we'll kick things off.
Hey, thanks, Rohit. First of all, thanks for inviting me here. I think I've managed to go back and see some of the earlier podcasts. A lot of interesting topics, a lot of great people. Some of them I know, so good to know that. So first of all, thanks and thanks for everyone who've joined. A quick background of what I've done. I've been broadly in the startup ecosystem over the last decade plus, right? Before that, I've spent a long time in consulting and started my journey in the consumer goods space. So I'll just maybe start from right from the beginning. So maybe it will help build bridges. Did my first stint at Britannia as a sales manager, handling depots. So that's when I got my first uh, real experience of operations, right? Logistics. Stationed in Kerala, handling maybe the second largest state in India, realizing how much biscuits Mallus eat. So that was a surprise for me. But yeah, I'm myself one, so that was one surprise. But getting your hands dirty in logistics, making trucks move uh, from point A, from various maybe 15, 20 factories across India to your depot location, then being sent to the distributor, then making a secondary sale. So that was my first actually eye opener into hardcore operations. Then moved on into my consulting role, joined a company called Tata Strategic Management Group, strategy consulting arm of the group. At that point in time, used to do a lot of consulting outside the group. Did a lot of India market entry, Starbucks entry, a lot of JVs, M&As, and then also a lot of sales transformation exercises. And that's when again operations comes under focus for me. Moved to Deloitte, did a lot of sales transformation exercises, GTM work for players like Pepsi, Panasonic, and that's when uh, the digital boom was happening, right? And made my move to Flipkart. In Flipkart, focused on actually my first role. I still try to remember and exactly define what it was, right? It was a function called business ops, which was everything under the sun, which cannot be defined, right? And that was hardcore ops, focusing on supply chain on one hand, finance ops on the other, legal ops on one hand. So it was everything to do with ops, right? Did that for an year, but the core was scaling up marketplace, right? And from close to scratch to maybe 100,000 sellers. Obviously a large team, but that I was at the heart of that, right? And saw that entire uh, scale up happening from a Flipkart perspective, then moved into a pseudo strategy role in business, and then did a multiple stints of handling P&Ls in Flipkart in the electronics table. So that gave me a full sense of how to handle P&L. Then moved into ClearTrip, was leading the India business there, large business, and that's when also the Flipkart acquisition happened. So I actually joined and left Flipkart twice, incidentally. But again, so the ClearTrip business gave me a good understanding of how mature P&Ls are run, right? Flipkart was in growth phase. How you do operations in growth and how you do operations in a mature business is very different. And that's how your unit economics play out, right? That's when you're able to squeeze out every rupee. So, for example, in Flipkart, if there were 10 people doing something, just because you are focused on growth, in ClearTrip, you will find maybe a couple of people, if not lesser, right? And operations is beyond supply chain. And that's what maybe we'll delve into as we move into the next 60 minutes or so. Uh, People have this misnomer operations is all about moving goods and all. No, it's everything involving physical work is operations. So that was my ClearTrip stint. Did that, then moved to Tata Digital to set up their travel platform That was their first native travel platform. Was with them for a couple of years. Then in when I was in Tata Digital is when this entire AI burst happened, right? And being you have the advantage of being part of the Tata group, so you are in discussions with everyone at the cutting edge of AI, right? Including you talk of Microsoft, Google, whatever work they were doing, we were getting exposed to it, and that's when some of my ideas started popping up as to what could be done, and that's when a vision tech AI kind of thesis was playing out in my head. A lot of discussions in the ecosystem somehow landed up in 56 Secure. Great experience. They were doing some cutting edge stuff. Realized in that journey that B2B, the problem statements are much larger, and the opportunity and the problem, challenges, opportunity all go in tandem, are much, much larger. And that's when thought that, okay, is there a much larger opportunity, and trying to build out something in the physical AI space, wherein we are trying to intelligently automate physical workflows for enterprise. That's an ocean. We are. It's been a constant learning. I think it's been a long journey. We are still maybe at 10-20% of understanding the real problem statement, but that 10-20% is a significant amount of learning. I think that's where we are. So interesting journey. I've been, but my initial consulting stint is helping me a lot now, right? Being able to work across 20 odd sectors, having seen those operations, and it's very surprising. We all talk about a lot of advancement, but it's still how much has not changed is also a great eye opener, right? When you go on the ground, the way operations are done. Yes, you talk about all AI and all that, but still operations. What I used to do in Britannia is very much close to that, right? Yes, some companies have evolved, but you still find 80% of the industry still operating in close to what it was 15 years back. So I think that's been my journey. Great one, a lot of learnings. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. And I think that's like the perfect segue into the first segment that we want to talk about, right? So I think we try and cover three things. Like one, given your vast experience across industries, across segments over the years, one is to get a little bit of a sense, right? What you were just alluding to. What is operations at these kind of companies, either the ones you helped build or say the companies that you were supporting as a consultant with 56 Secure, with what you're doing today at Physical AI. What does physical operations actually look like at some of these places? Get a little bit of a picture of how these things are evolving, and then we dive into the meat of the conversation where we want to understand, how can transformation be implemented? Where are the profit pools? Where are the problems that need to be solved? And a little bit also about how maybe y'all are using AI not just to solve problems, but to say run and operate and build the business in a lean, effective way itself, right? So maybe
Sure.
these are three broad areas we'll cover. So quickly jumping into the first one, Rajiv, you alluded to it already. Maybe give us a quick sense, right? Like diverse industries, right? You have FMCG on one side, you have e-commerce and consumer internet in the middle, and now the work that you're doing with more ops-heavy industries where you're trying to support them with AI capabilities. Could you give us a little bit, maybe two things, right? Like one, give us a little bit of a sense of what operations, right? Broadly looks like a little bit of a sense of how these things have evolved over the years, right? From human-led automation to more basic SaaS to now what you're seeing with the green shoots of like AI adoption. And also maybe layer over that a little bit of context on what success in operations or operations excellence sort of looks like, right? In these kind of industries. And then we'll get into how maybe transformation, etc., can drive a change.
Yeah, so great question. Let me start with my first experience in FMCG, and I saw that play out over my Britannia stint and even in consulting, right? And how companies started getting benefits out of it, right? Now, uh, FMCG in India operates through a distributor model. We all know, right? That companies manufacture goods, they have their warehouses, and that those warehouses send goods to distributors who then send to retailers, and then the sellout happens. Now, for a long time, right, the companies used to send goods to the distributor, and that was the end of it, right? And for them, that was how revenue gets realized over time, right? Very, very evolved companies like HUL, who's at actually the torch has been the torchbearer, realize that the distributor is actually my job doesn't end by sending goods there. I need to understand what's happening at the market, right? What product is selling beyond that. And that was one, and especially, obviously, things would have happened before me, but when I was there, this entire automation of the second level of the channel became the biggest differentiator, right? So players like Hindustan Unilever went and completely digitized, brought on the distributor and the next level, which is the retailer, their data on the system. They digitized this. So if and same thing happened with Britannia, and I saw that because Britannia sort of a second mover, but did great work there. Wherein if we used to sell biscuits to a distributor, we used to have say 120 SKUs. Earlier we never used to know what was happening beyond the distributor, right? But once the distributor came live, I know what's selling where, right? And what's the movement. And that completely transformed your channel operations, right? The way you plan for inventory, the way, and it goes all the way back into raw material planning, right? So that entire procure to pay kind of a cycle, right? Saw efficiencies coming out, right? It unlocked multiple. I was in the food business, so you get fresher products on shelf for the customer, right? Higher conversions, all of that, and going back to unlocking working capital, right? Obviously, when you're planning your raw material uh, procurement better. Now that when I moved into my consulting stint, I worked with $1 billion family managed business, right? And I helped over an 18-24 month complete transformation exercise. And that this is one of the first, and this was my core learning, which I'd lived through, right? I'd seen through it. And they were still operating on a manual, uh, a maximum Excel sheet kind of a plan. And when we brought this kind of a system, right, that completely transformed and put the power in the hands of the salesman. And that was one huge uh, change that I saw in the industry. That was my FMCG piece, right? Then, say, when I moved into Flipkart, this entire ability to plan your sales, right? And I'm 100% sure I've been out of the system for some time. It's still a challenge, but the ability to plan how much you would sell uh, of each product, right? To be able to do that, how it transformed from just being a manual input saying that, hey, Rohit, you're the category manager, how much would you sell, to something like how much you've sold, what have been the critical inputs, and going uh, and then coming up with a basic plan of what a sales plan could look like, over which still you would have some manual inputs, but at least there is a 90% confidence plan that comes out. That was one big change, right? And just imagine in Flipkart when we used to run categories and businesses, the you have so I remember I used to look after a category called electronic accessories. It used to have roughly 9 crore SKUs listed. Now, it is humanly impossible to focus on 9 crore SKUs. Yes, a big chunk of it was mobile case covers and all, but to focus on them to see what is the pricing, etc. Right? I remember, and it's a funny story. I remember one of the BBDs, right, that you have a wrong pricing which goes out now, which was supposed to be at 10,000 rupees by mistake gets listed at 1 or 100. Now, obviously, when humongous amount of traffic coming onto your platform, some maybe even if 500 people look at that, you can do the math as to how much losses you're looking at, right? So how do you build your backend system to manage pricing? I've been speaking to some of the people who've done this cutting edge stuff there. That system has come a long way, right? So now being able to understand what competition is doing, what pricing, say for example, electronics, an Apple iPhone 17 256 GB is the same black color, right? It doesn't change across two platforms. If I know my competition platform is pricing it at 100, what should be my pricing strategy? Earlier, it used to be a lot of manual overload. Now, can you automate your entire pricing engine? You don't want to lose money, but you don't want to be seen as being outpriced by competition, right? So there are so to answer your question, this word operations, again, what I alluded to earlier, has touches multiple functions, and it's actually a 360 degree cut in business. It's not just logistics and manufacturing. Because there's a much larger gamut of software automation happening in operations, and actually That's the low hanging fruit actually, which got uh, touched first. Where I am right now in the physical AI space is actually the last frontier, if you ask me, and the most challenging one. All the others have got touched.